10 years after our infertility shattered our marriage, I thought I'd never hear his voice again. But there he was, my ex-husband, pointing at my son across a crowded school auditorium and calling him a bully. He didn't know. He didn't know the boy he accused was the same child who once hid bruises under oversized sleeves. The same child who still slept with a nightlight because darkness reminded him of places he'd never speak of. He didn't know the boy he condemned was the one who finally made me feel like a mother after years of empty cribs and whispered prayers. And he certainly didn't know that the scared teenager staring at the floor was the child he would have loved if life had been kinder. When our eyes met after a decade apart, the truth rose between us like a ghost, unfinished, undeniable, and ready to break us all over again. I never thought I would see Ethan Carter again, at least not in a way that would make my heart slam against my ribs the way it did that morning. 10 years had passed since the divorce. Please subscribe. Our channel thank you shredded everything we had built together. 10 years since infertility. Grief and blame had carved a canyon so wide between us that neither of us could find the bridge back. 10 years since he walked out of our tiny red brick house with his suitcase dragging behind him, leaving me staring at the doorway, wondering why love wasn't enough to keep us whole. I rebuilt, slowly, painfully, quietly. And then came Noah. Not my biological child, but mine in every way that mattered. I fostered him when he was 6, small, quiet, skittish, with eyes too old for his age. The kind of child who flinched when someone lifted a hand too quickly. The kind of child who apologized when he simply existed. By the time he turned 16, he was tall, athletic, and gentle, too gentle sometimes. He loved animals, worshipped old classic rock bands, and still couldn't sleep without a nightlight. To me, he wasn't just a son. He was the miracle life had denied me in every other way. Which is why hearing someone accuse him of being a bully hit harder than a punch. Especially when the voice making the accusation belonged to him. I was sitting in the high school auditorium for the school disciplinary hearing, something Noah begged me not to let him attend alone. My hands were clasped so tightly in my lap that my knuckles ached. Parents murmured all around me, teachers shuffling papers, the principal whispering to a counselor. But all I heard was the voice that broke me once. Now sharper, older, but unmistakably the same. Ethan. He stood on the other side of the room, tall, confident, in a crisp navy suit. His hair had more silver at the temples now, but it only added to his sharp, distinguished look. He looked successful, polished, intimidating, and he looked furious. His son, sat beside him, arms crossed, a bandage across his cheek. A boy who looked nothing like Ethan but everything like the kind of privileged kid who never hears the word no. Their eyes darted toward Noah. My boy sat silently, shoulders drawn in, jaw tight, eyes fixed on his shoes. That was how Noah processed fear. He closed into himself like a turtle retreating into its shell. My son was attacked, Ethan stated to the vice principal. And apparently the attacker is this, Noah Rivers. The way he said Noah's name, cold, dismissive, made something ancient and angry rise inside me. I stood. Not because I wanted to, because my son needed me to. And because Ethan Carter, my ex-husband, had just accused the only good thing in my life of something I knew deep in my bones he couldn't have done. Our eyes met for the first time in a decade. His widened, mine hardened, and the past we thought we buried began digging itself back up. For a long moment, the room seemed to freeze around us. Ethan's eyes locked onto mine as if he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. I didn't blame him. I wasn't the woman he left a decade ago, the woman who cried quietly in bathrooms and pretended to be strong in daylight. Life had carved sharper edges into me, shown me resilience I never expected to need. But I saw something flicker across his expression, disbelief, recognition, and a flash of the old hurt we both tried to outrun. I didn't look away. Ethan, I said, keeping my voice steady. Amelia? His voice dropped, the fury cracking with surprise. You're Noah's mother? His mom, I corrected, my stare cold. Yes. His jaw tightened. Well, then perhaps you can explain why your son assaulted mine. Before I could respond, Principal Harris raised a hand. Let's all sit. We're here to review statements, not argue. But I didn't sit, not yet. I looked at Noah, his shoulders trembling ever so slightly. I knew the signs. He wasn't scared of being punished. He was scared of disappointing me. My heart squeezed. I touched his shoulder gently, and he flinched, just a little, before relaxing under my hand. I didn't hit him, Noah whispered. Mom, I promise. I nodded once. I believe you. Ethan scoffed softly, as if the words irritated him. Your son left a bruise on my boy's face, Amelia. Belief doesn't change facts. I turned to the other boy, Jason. He smirked slightly. Not enough for adults to catch, but enough for me to see. It wasn't confidence. It was arrogance. A boy who always got away with things because someone protected him. Just like the boys who had cornered Noah last year. Like the ones who shoved him for being quiet. Like the ones who stole his lunch and said he looked too soft to fight back. Principal Harris began. We will go through each testimony. Jason, would you start? Jason leaned back, comfortable. I was walking to class, and Noah shoved me into the lockers for no reason. When I told him to back off, he punched me. A lie. I saw it immediately. Noah never hit first. Noah barely raised his voice, let alone a fist. The principal turned to Noah. Is that your account? Noah's throat bobbed as he swallowed. I didn't push him. Did you punch him? No. His voice cracked, panic rising. I didn't. Ethan exhaled sharply, shaking his head. This is unbelievable. I snapped toward him. You haven't changed. You hear one side and assume guilt. His gaze sharpened. Because I'm hearing it from my son. And I'm hearing it from mine. Silence. For the first time, uncertainty crossed Ethan's face. He had always known when I lied. He had always known when I believed something with my whole heart. And right now, he could see I would have staked my life on Noah's innocence. Principal Harris cleared his throat. We also have witness reports. Ethan straightened confidently, but my pulse quickened. Because Noah's eyes widened in terror, like he. The room shifted the moment Principal Harris mentioned witnesses. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just a quiet tightening in the air. A subtle stillness that made every parent straighten in their chair. But Noah reacted like someone had pulled the ground from under him. His breath stuttered. His shoulders curled inward. His fingers dug into the fabric of his sleeve until his knuckles went white. To anyone else, he looked nervous. To me, he looked terrified. Principal Harris lifted the first paper. A student report seeing Jason shove Noah near the lockers before walking away. A ripple of confusion crossed the room. Jason's smirk vanished. That's not what happened. The principal moved to the second statement. Another witness heard verbal insults directed at Noah. Specific words mentioned. Charity case, foster reject, and he paused, eyes narrowing. Kids like you don't belong here. My stomach twisted. Noah's head dropped. Ethan muttered, Jason. But his voice held more warning than belief. And lastly, Principal Harris continued. A third witness saw Jason grab Noah's backpack. Noah pushed him off, apparently in defense, causing the fall. Silence. Thick, heavy, undeniable. For a moment I saw the exact second Ethan's certainty began to crack. His jaw tightened, but his eyes darted into shadow, searching, doubting. He looked at his son, then at Noah, then at me, as if he needed one of us to hand him the truth neatly wrapped. Jason's voice broke through the quiet, high and desperate. Dad, they're lying. You know I wouldn't do that. But even as he said it, his face flushed, his gaze unsteady. He did do it, and he knew it. Noah, Principal Harris said gently, please tell us your side. Noah lifted his head slowly, his eyes shiny but determined. He said things about me. His voice cracked. About being in foster care. About Mom. Then he grabbed my bag and told me to walk away. Charity case. I pushed him off. I didn't punch him. I swear. His last words trembled in the air before sinking into absolute silence. For the first time, Ethan truly looked at Noah, not judging, not assuming, but seeing. Not a bully, not a threat, just a boy. A quiet boy trying very hard not to disappear into the floor. A boy who reminded him of someone he once called family. Principal Harris set the papers down. Given the statements, it appears Noah acted in self-defense. Jason jolted upright. So you're taking their side? Against me. Ethan's voice came low, steady. Jason, sit. Jason froze. Everyone froze. Because this wasn't the voice of an angry father. It was the voice of a man who suddenly didn't know what to believe. And in that split second, our past, the infertility, the blame, the divorce, rose between us again. For 10 years we had avoided this collision. For 10 years we'd lived separate stories. But today, in this fluorescent-lit room with our sons between us, the truth had dragged us back together. Ethan didn't speak for several seconds, and in that quiet, every memory I had ever tried to bury came rushing back, the nights. We sat with adoption brochures spread across the table. The months filled with medications, injections, losses. The way grief hollowed him out until there was nothing left for us. The night he told me he couldn't keep pretending. And now here we were, facing another child, another wound, another truth. Principal Harris exhaled. Given the evidence, the school will proceed with consequences for Jason. Noah will not be suspended. Jason slammed his palm onto the table. You're ruining my life because of him? His glare snapped toward Noah like a knife. He's lying. He's a freak. Enough. Ethan's voice cracked like thunder. Jason froze mid-sentence. But this time, it wasn't the commanding tone that stunned him. It was the hurt behind it. Ethan rarely sounded hurt. He looked at his son, searching his face the way only a parent who suddenly fears the truth might be different than they imagined could ever look. Jason, he said softly, did you say those things? Jason's mouth trembled. Dad, no. He pushed me first. That isn't what I asked. His voice didn't rise. That made it worse. Jason's eyes darted around the room, desperate for an exit. Why should I be punished for defending myself? Defending yourself, Ethan repeated slowly, is not the same as provoking someone. Jason looked away, jaw clenched, lips quivering. He didn't deny it again. And that silent admission, however unwilling, cut through the tension. Like a blade. Noah's shoulders relaxed slightly, but his fingers still shook. He stared at the floor, not triumphant, not relieved, just exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that only kids with long histories of being misunderstood ever feel. Principal Harris stood. Let's take a break. Emotions are high, and this conversation is shifting from discipline to something more personal. Teachers began gathering papers. Parents whispered. Chairs slid. Noah slowly stood, instinctively inching closer to me as if the room might swallow him. His voice was barely a breath. Did I do something wrong? I cupped his cheek. No, sweetheart. You defended yourself. That's allowed. Behind us, I felt Ethan's gaze, heavy, unspoken. Noah hesitated, then whispered. I didn't want to make things worse. You didn't, I said firmly. But inside, I wondered if he believed me, or if years of being told otherwise still echoed louder than my reassurance. When we turned to leave the conference room, Ethan stepped forward unexpectedly. Amelia, he said quietly. I froze. We hadn't spoken more than 10 words to each other in a decade. Not after the divorce, not after the final court papers, not after our entire future dissolved like a sandcastle under a wave. But hearing him say my name again, my pulse stuttered. We should talk, he said. I blinked. About what? His eyes softened, haunted, searching. About our sons. That choice of words, our, made my breath catch. He glanced at Noah, and something in his expression cracked open, something raw and unguarded. Noah, he murmured, I owe you an apology. Noah stiffened, stunned. And I realized this wasn't just about a school fight. This was the beginning of everything we never resolved. Everything we never said. Everything that still hurt. The hallway outside the conference room was quieter, but the tension clung to the air like humidity. Thick, heavy, hard to breathe through. Noah stayed close to my side, hovering like he wasn't sure he was allowed to take up space. Ethan stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, shoulders stiff, as if he were holding himself together by will alone. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Then Ethan cleared his throat. Noah, I want to say I'm sorry. Noah's head jerked up, startled. Apologies weren't something he heard often growing up in foster homes. They were foreign, unexpected. I accused you without hearing your side, Ethan continued. I shouldn't have done that. Noah's brows creased. It's okay. It's not, Ethan corrected gently. And I want you to know, you didn't deserve that. Noah blinked, absorbing his words like someone who wasn't used to being believed. He nodded slowly, but he didn't step closer. Trust was something Noah built in layers, not leaps. I watched them, my heart tightening in ways I didn't expect. Ethan turned to me next. Amelia, can we talk privately? I stiffened. About what? He hesitated, a rare thing for a man who used to make decisions with crisp certainty. About everything. My breath caught. Everything was a loaded word. It carried years of heartbreak, silence, and unanswered questions. I don't think that's a good idea right now, I said carefully. At least a few minutes, he insisted. We owe our sons clarity. Sons. The word tangled in my chest, complicated and aching. Before I could answer, Noah tugged gently at my sleeve. Mom? His eyes were uncertain, searching my face for reassurance. He wasn't afraid of Ethan. He was afraid of losing me to something from my past. I'll be right here, I said softly. I'm not leaving you. His shoulders relaxed a little. Ethan and I stepped a short distance away, still within Noah's sight. He watched us like someone afraid the adults would break something fragile between them. How long have you been his mother? Ethan asked quietly. 6 years, I said. His eyes softened. He's a good kid. He is, I answered, pride swelling. You look different, he murmured. Stronger. I had to be. He nodded, swallowing. I didn't expect to see you today. Nor I you, I said. Silence stretched, heavy with old wounds. Finally, Ethan exhaled. Amelia, I don't know how to say this without sounding selfish, but seeing you with him, seeing the way he looks at you, I realized something. I braced myself. I never understood how deeply you wanted to be a mother, he admitted. Not until now. A sharp ache cut through my chest. You knew, I whispered. I knew you wanted a child, he said. But I didn't understand what it cost you. What it did to you, to us. I looked away, blinking back the sting in my eyes. Ethan's voice lowered, filled with regret. I'm sorry. For all of it, for the things I said, for leaving the way I did. I said nothing, because apologies couldn't rewrite the past. But they could open a door to a truth we'd avoided for years. Ethan took a breath. And I think Jason isn't the only one who needs to face what he's done. My heart paused. Are you talking about yourself? I whispered. He nodded. For the first time in 10 years, he said quietly, I'm ready to. Ethan's confession hung between us, fragile as glass. If I spoke too quickly, it might shatter. If I stayed silent too long, he might retreat into the shell of the man he had become. The man who walked away instead of facing the ruins of our marriage. I folded my arms, grounding myself. Why now, Ethan? Why after 10 years? He looked toward Noah, who sat on a bench, hugging his backpack like a shield, and something in Ethan's eyes broke open. Because when I saw him, I saw the boy we prayed for. A painful breath caught in my throat. Don't, I whispered. I'm not trying to hurt you, he said gently. But he's everything we wanted. A child who needed love. A child who needed you. My chest tightened. We weren't ready back then. You know that. No, Ethan said. I wasn't ready. You were? I froze. He had never admitted that before. Not once. Not during the fertility treatments. Not during the arguments. Not during the nights he slept on the couch. Not during the divorce hearings, where we spoke through lawyers, instead of each other. Ethan continued softly. I let grief make me selfish. I let it blind me. And I blamed you for wanting something I couldn't give. I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper. You didn't blame me. You resented me. He didn't deny it. That resentment destroyed us, I said. I know, Ethan nodded. And I've spent years pretending it didn't, pretending I was fine, pretending I moved on. But today, he exhaled. Watching my son hurt another kid who's been through more than he'll ever understand. It forced me to think about the man I became. That doesn't erase what happened, I murmured. I'm not trying to erase it, he replied. I'm trying to face it. The honesty in his voice shook me. But honesty didn't fix 10 years of silence. It didn't make us whole again. Before I could respond, Noah stood and walked toward us hesitantly. His brows were pinched with worry. Mom, are you okay? I blinked away the sting behind my eyes and knelt so I could meet his gaze. Of course. We're just talking. He nodded but didn't look convinced. His eyes flicked to Ethan, curious, cautious, unsure. Ethan. I didn't sleep that night. Noah didn't either. I could hear him shifting, pacing, sitting up, lying back down. At 3 a.m., he finally knocked on my door, softly like he was afraid to break. Mom, are you awake? I sat up instantly. Come here. He crawled into my bed the way he used to when he was small and terrified of thunder. And just like back then, I wrapped my arms around him until his breathing steadied. I wasn't trying to hurt him, he whispered into the darkness. I didn't even shove him. Mom, I just grabbed his shoulder because he kept laughing when Ethan cried. I told him to stop. That's it. I swear. My heart cracked. I believe you. I've always believed you. But he didn't. He didn't have to say the name. I already felt it, like a bruise I kept pressing. Daniel. I brushed Noah's hair from his forehead. In that moment, with his face still soft with boyhood, but marked with the responsibility of a man, I felt something shift inside me. A decision forming. Tomorrow, I said, we will fix this, together. He nodded, but I could still feel the hurt trembling through him. By morning, I had already emailed the school requesting a meeting with the principal, the counselor, and, yes, Coach Harding. I also asked for the other boys' parents to attend if possible. I wanted everything out in the open. No shadows. No accusations whispered behind closed doors. When we arrived, the hallway was tense with morning rush. But everything inside the meeting room felt still. Too still. The principal cleared his throat. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Carter, and Noah." Before I could reply, the door opened again, and Daniel walked in. He froze when he saw me sitting beside Noah. Our chairs pulled close together like a ready-made wall. "You requested to be here?" the principal asked Daniel. "Yes," he said. His voice sounded strained. "I wanted to hear the full story." My jaw tightened, but I stayed silent. The counselor began. "We've spoken with all students involved. Noah did not initiate violence. He intervened because Ethan was being mocked, and the weight in the room was palpable after Daniel's apology. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the tight line of his jaw, and the way he avoided looking directly at Noah. It wasn't a full surrender. It was the first crack in years of misunderstanding and entitlement. But it was a start. Noah, ever cautious, didn't rush to forgive or smile. He simply sat straighter, his hands folded neatly in his lap. The quiet confidence of someone who knew he had acted rightly, but had also learned the hard lesson that adults rarely saw the truth immediately. I reached over and touched his shoulder lightly. "You did the right thing, Noah. Don't forget it." He exhaled a long, shaky breath and nodded. I didn't want it to be like last time," he whispered. The memory of previous foster homes and teachers who blamed him instead of protecting him lingering in his voice. Daniel finally lifted his gaze, and when he looked at Noah, it wasn't with accusation. It was uncertainty, curiosity, and something like guilt. I didn't see it from his side," Daniel admitted. "I didn't know how things really were. I just assumed he started it." Noah's lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't respond. That was enough for now. Let the truth linger, let it sink in slowly. Ethan, who had remained silent in the corner, finally spoke. "It's easy to judge when you're not in the middle of it," he said, his voice low and steady. "But seeing Noah, seeing him react, seeing him stand his ground without cruelty, makes you realize the boy is different than assumptions." Daniel swallowed, and I saw the recognition cross his face. He had expected Noah to be trouble, a bully, someone aggressive, someone his son could point to as the instigator. He hadn't expected courage, dignity, and restraint. He hadn't expected morality. The principal nodded. "Sometimes, the ones we judge the hardest are the ones who need the most understanding. I hope today is a step in that direction." Noah finally relaxed just a fraction. It wasn't triumph, it wasn't victory. It was acknowledgement. The small, quiet victory of being believed. Ethan's gaze shifted to me, and I could see the memory of the past reflected in his eyes. The fights, the failures, the years of silence, but also the realization that life hadn't ended. It had only moved in unexpected ways, ways that brought us here, together, confronting the truth. I took a deep breath and decided to speak what had been simmering inside me for years. "We can't change the past, Ethan. We can't fix what was broken. But we can decide how to move forward, from here, with honesty, respect, and understanding." He nodded slowly, a small tentative acknowledgement. "I want that," he admitted. "For Noah, for me, for you." Daniel finally muttered, I want that too." The room seemed to shift, lighter somehow, as though the air itself had been released from a heavy weight it had carried for too long. Noah looked at all of us, not with anger, not with F. The rest of the day passed in a blur of small, tense conversations. Noah stayed close to me, occasionally glancing at Ethan as if measuring the distance between past and present. I could feel the unspoken question in his gaze. Is this safe? Can I trust them? Ethan lingered near the exit, watching us with a mixture of caution and curiosity. He wasn't used to seeing Noah as a real person, a boy with his own courage and heart, not just the child of a former wife he left behind. And perhaps for the first time, he was beginning to see me in the same light, as someone who had endured, who had grown, who had loved fiercely despite everything. We walked through the hall, and Daniel approached cautiously. I wanted to say one more thing," he said, his voice quieter than before. "I've never really thought about how much words can hurt, how assumptions can ruin someone's day, or more. I'm sorry for judging him so quickly." Noah's eyes flicked up, cautious but curious. "You really mean that?" "I do," Daniel said, nodding. "I see now. I was wrong." Noah hesitated, then gave the smallest nod. It wasn't a full forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement, and sometimes that was the first step toward healing. Ethan cleared his throat. "I think we should all sit down sometime, privately, just us adults. There's a lot to unpack, and Noah doesn't need to carry the burden of it anymore." I met his eyes. There was no hostility, no resentment, just the faint shadow of regret softened by recognition. We can, I said. But let's give the boys space. They've already carried enough today. Noah stayed close to me as we walked outside. The sunlight hit his face, catching the edges of his soft brown hair. He squinted, then smiled faintly. Mom, do you think he really means it? I hugged him tightly. I think he's trying, Noah. That's all we can ever ask. We turned to see Ethan speaking quietly with Daniel. His posture was straighter, more relaxed, yet there was still a trace of tension, like a man unlearning old habits. Noah looked up at me. Do you think? Maybe they can be okay. They can, I said gently. But it will take time, just like everything that matters. For the first time in a long time, Noah walked beside me without flinching. The world didn't feel entirely safe, not yet, but it felt possible. Ethan and Daniel approached slowly, tentative. Daniel gave Noah a small nod, while Ethan extended his hand toward him. Noah froze for a heartbeat. Then, slowly, he shook it. It was a small gesture, but it was monumental. A bridge built over 10 years of distance, mistrust, and misunderstanding. I watched them, and for the first time in a decade, I felt the possibility of healing, not just for Noah, but for all of us. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the parking lot. And though the day had been heavy with confrontation, it ended with a flicker of hope. Noah squeezed my hand. Mom, maybe things can be different now. That evening, we sat in the quiet of our living room. The kind of silence that wasn't empty. It was reflective, charged with everything that had happened earlier. Noah sprawled on the couch, his legs tucked under him, eyes distant, as if replaying every moment of the confrontation, every word exchanged. I could feel the tension slowly easing, though, like water draining from a heavy vessel. I can't believe he thought I was the bully, Noah whispered, his voice small. All those years, and he... I wrapped an arm around him. Shh, I know, sweetheart, but you did what was right. You stayed true to yourself, even when they didn't see it. He leaned against me, finally allowing himself to relax. I hate that people judge me before they even know me. I know, baby. That's the hardest part about being different. But you showed them today what kind of person you are. And that matters more than their assumptions. A knock at the door startled us. I opened it to find Ethan standing there, holding a small folder of papers. He looked hesitant, unsure, but determined. Hi, he said softly. I didn't want to leave without saying one more thing. Noah froze. I held his hand tightly. It's okay, I whispered. You can do this. Ethan nodded, his eyes on Noah. I just want you to know, I see you. I see who you are, and I was wrong to assume anything else. You've got courage, heart, and integrity, things that matter far more than a fight or a bruise. I'm proud of you. Noah blinked, shocked. You mean that? Ethan nodded. Every word. Noah hesitated, then gave the smallest smile, the kind that broke through walls built over years of fear. Thank you, he whispered. Ethan turned to me. Amelia, I know this doesn't fix anything from the past, but I want to try. For Noah, for understanding, and maybe for us eventually. I studied him, searching for traces of the man I once knew, the one who had left, the one who had caused pain, but I also saw the man trying to emerge from the mistakes of 10 years, the one willing to face the truth. Maybe we can start with small steps, I said carefully. No pressure, no expectations, just honesty. He nodded slowly. I can do that. Noah watched us silently, then tugged my sleeve. Mom, can he come for dinner sometime? Maybe next week? I glanced at Ethan. He nodded, and a small, almost shy smile appeared on his face. I'd like that, he said softly. I exhaled, a weight lifting from my chest. The tension of the day, the decade of misunderstandings, and the bitterness of old wounds. It all felt a little lighter now. Noah leaned against me, his smile growing. Mom, maybe life isn't as unfair as it feels sometimes. I hugged him tightly. Noah, life is never perfect, but sometimes it gives you moments like this, moments that make all the pain worthwhile. And as Ethan lingered at the door, watching us with quiet hope, I realized something I hadn't admitted in years. Maybe, just maybe, this. The following week passed with a strange mixture of anticipation and calm. Noah kept glancing at the calendar on the fridge, counting the days with the quiet excitement of someone who wanted something to go right for once, but didn't dare say it out loud. Ethan was coming for dinner on Friday. His idea, his suggestion, that alone was enough to make my heart ache with a complicated blend of nostalgia and cautious hope. By Friday afternoon, Noah was practically buzzing around the kitchen. He chopped vegetables with an enthusiasm I rarely saw and kept rearranging the plates on the table, trying to make everything look normal. but not too fancy, but also not boring. You're overthinking, I teased gently. I just want him to, I don't know, feel welcome? Noah shrugged. Like maybe he'll see that we're good, that he doesn't have to be scared of messing up with us. I paused. Those words, scared of messing up with us, hit deeper than I expected. Noah had always seen more than he said. I smoothed a hand over his hair. You already made him feel welcome, sweetheart. You gave him a chance. That's more than most people ever do. He smiled shyly. Thanks, Mom. At 6 exactly, the doorbell rang. Ethan stood there, not with his usual guarded expression, but wearing a smile that was, surprisingly, nervous. He held a small bag in his hand. Hi, he said. I brought dessert. And, something else. Noah peeked over my shoulder. What did you bring? Ethan held out a box wrapped in dark blue paper. This is for you. Noah blinked. Me? Yeah, Ethan said softly. I didn't know what you liked, so I asked your mom what you've been into lately. Noah looked at me with wide eyes. I hadn't told him. It had been Ethan's idea entirely, another small step. He opened the box carefully. Inside was a hardcover graphic novel from a series Noah adored, one he'd been saving up to buy. Oh my God, Noah whispered. How did you know? Ethan chuckled awkwardly. Your mom said you like heroes who don't start out strong, but become strong because they protect others. Noah looked up, eyes bright. That's exactly why. I thought so, Ethan said. This time he didn't look away. And I think you're one of those heroes too. Noah's breath hitched, and I felt something deep inside me loosen, a knot I'd been carrying for years. Dinner wasn't perfect. We burned the bread. Noah spilled water on the table. Ethan dropped a fork, but it was real, and it was ours. Afterward, the two of them sat on the couch flipping through the new book, talking quietly, not forced, not uncomfortable, just connecting. I stood in the doorway, watching the scene I never thought I'd see. My son, my ex-husband, side by side, not broken, not angry, trying. For the first time in a decade, our world didn't feel divided. It felt like a bridge had finally been built across all the years, all the misunderstandings, all the wounds. And as I watched them, by the next morning, the house felt different, lighter, warmer, as if the previous week's small victories had rearranged the air itself. Noah moved through the kitchen with a quiet confidence I hadn't seen before. He hummed softly while preparing breakfast, occasionally glancing toward the door as though expecting someone to arrive early. You're in a good mood, I observed, sipping my coffee. I feel like maybe things are starting to make sense, he admitted. Like maybe. People can change. Even him. I smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from his face. Even grown-ups, Noah. Believe it or not, we change too. Our conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. My heart skipped a beat, not because I was anxious, but because I knew who it was. Ethan. Again. He stepped inside, holding a small bag of groceries and a nervous smile. I thought I'd help with lunch, he said. You've been cooking nonstop and I didn't want to sit idle. Noah's eyes lit up. Really? You're gonna cook? Ethan chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. I make a mean sandwich. That counts, right? Noah laughed, a sound that was warm, genuine, free of the hesitation he usually carried. Watching them interact, I realized something profound. The tension between the boys from last week wasn't just about a fight. It was about learning how to trust adults again, how to see them as guides instead of threats. We moved to the kitchen, and the three of us began preparing lunch together. Ethan was careful but deliberate, chopping vegetables and slicing bread with precision, occasionally glancing at Noah to ensure he was doing things right. Noah, in turn, gave gentle instructions, teaching Ethan how to make his favorite sandwich exactly as he liked it. It was a small moment, mundane in its simplicity, but monumental in its significance. You know, Ethan said quietly, I didn't realize how much I missed this, just being around someone whose family, without all the complications from before. I froze, unsure how to respond. There was truth in his words, raw and unfiltered. We'd spent a decade apart, yet somehow, we were finding our way back, not to what we had, but to something new. Noah looked up at me, eyes shining with curiosity. Mom, do you think he really means it? I think he does, I said gently, squeezing his hand. And that's what counts. As we sat down for lunch, Ethan across from us, Noah smiled more freely than he had in years. He was no longer just the shy, cautious boy who flinched at every raised voice. He was a young man discovering that not all authority figures were enemies, not all adults judged him before listening, and that even broken connections could be rebuilt. Ethan reached across the table, placing his hand briefly over mine. It was a quiet acknowledgement, a gesture that spoke of regret, hope, and the possibility of reconciliation. I looked at him and nodded slightly. "We'll take it one day at a time," I said. Ethan smiled, a foe. The weeks that followed felt surreal. Noah began to smile more often, not just at home but at school too. He walked with a subtle confidence, the kind that comes from being understood and protected rather than judged. Ethan called almost every day, sometimes to check in on Noah, sometimes to ask about recipes or school events. Each call was careful, deliberate, a reminder that he was learning to be present again, without imposing or overstepping. One evening as the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the living room, Noah tugged on my sleeve. "Mom, can we go for a walk?" I nodded, sensing that he needed this, not just for fresh air, but to process the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside him. Ethan, who had accompanied us at first, trailed behind quietly. We walked down the tree-lined streets near our home, the autumn air crisp and fragrant with fallen leaves. Noah skipped along, picking up each leaf and examining its color as if each held a secret message. Finally, he stopped and looked at Ethan. I want to say something." Ethan knelt slightly to be at eye level with him. "You can say anything, Noah." Noah swallowed, then spoke in a voice both firm and vulnerable. "Thank you for seeing me, for listening, for not judging me like he did." His eyes flicked at Ethan. "And for being brave enough to try again." Ethan's throat bobbed as he swallowed. "Noah, I'm proud of you, more than I can say. You've shown courage I didn't recognize before, and I hope one day you'll see me not as someone who left, but someone trying to make it right." Noah studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I think I do, and I'm willing to try." My heart swelled. Watching them interact, my son and the man I once loved, was a mixture of relief and disbelief. The barriers we had carried for a decade weren't gone, but cracks were forming. Cracks that could eventually let the light in. Ethan stood, dusting off his sleeves. "I know it won't be easy," he admitted. "We've all been hurt, but maybe this is a chance for all of us to heal." I glanced at him, feeling the weight of unspoken history between us. "It will take time, patience, honesty." He nodded solemnly. "I can do that." Noah stepped forward and linked arms with both of us. A silent acknowledgement of trust, a fragile, beautiful truce. "We'll do it together," he said. I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes. Not tears of pain, but of relief, of hope, of the realization that 10 years of distance, anger, and misunderstanding could finally begin to unravel. As we walked home, the three of us moved in harmony. No one was ahead, no one was behind. Side by side, tentative but willing, we stepped into a future neither of us could have predicted. And for the first time in a decade, I allowed myself to believe that life could be different. Not perfect, but real, honest, and full of possibility. Noah hummed softly, leaves crunching under our feet. And I realized that the following weekend, Ethan came over again, this time unannounced, with a basket of fresh bread and pastries. Noah's face lit up the moment he saw him at the door. "Hey kiddo," Ethan greeted softly, crouching to meet Noah's eyes. "Thought I'd bring something for breakfast. And maybe we can bake together?" Noah grinned widely. "Yes, Mom, he wants to bake." I laughed, shaking my head. "Well, I guess I can supervise." The kitchen became alive with the smell of butter and sugar. Flour dusted the counters, and soon, both Ethan and Noah were covered head to toe in it. I watched them laugh together. Ethan trying and failing to roll dough evenly while Noah corrected him gently but patiently. It was ordinary, mundane, yet extraordinary all at once. I realized then that healing didn't always arrive in dramatic confrontations or tearful apologies. It often appeared in small moments of connection, in laughter and shared effort. After they finished, we all sat around the table, enjoying the fruits of our labor. Noah's eyes sparkled as he tasted the first bite. "This is the best one yet," he declared. Ethan smiled. "I'll take that as a compliment." For a long while, none of us spoke. The comfortable silence said more than words could. Acceptance, understanding, and the slow, careful weaving of trust. Later, as we cleared the table, Ethan looked at me, his expression serious yet gentle. "Amelia, I know things will take time, and I don't expect forgiveness overnight. But I want to try to be a part of your lives. Not to erase the past, but to be honest about the present, and maybe build a future together, in a way that works for all of us." I studied him, the man I once loved but who had hurt me deeply. I saw sincerity in his eyes, a willingness to face the consequences of the past while walking carefully toward something better. I can't promise anything, I said softly. But I do see you trying, and that counts for a lot. He nodded, a flicker of hope crossing his features. That's all I ask. Noah tugged at my sleeve. Mom, can we do this again next weekend? I smiled at him, then glanced at Ethan. I think that can be arranged. Ethan's eyes lit up, and for the first time, the awkwardness of our reunion faded entirely. There was no tension, no expectation, just presence, honesty, and the tentative promise of a future rebuilt slowly, carefully, and with love. As we stood together in the kitchen, the sun casting warm rays across our faces, I realized something profound. The years of pain, of separation, of missed opportunities, had brought us here, to this fragile but beautiful beginning. Noah laughed, flower on his nose. Ethan joined in, a sound of genuine joy, and I felt, for the first time in a decade, that maybe our family, unconventional, imperfect, and tested, could finally be whole. Hope wasn't a guarantee. It wasn't easy, but it was real, and sometimes that was enough. The days that followed felt like a gentle unraveling of the past, a slow letting go of pain and suspicion. Noah woke up happier, lighter. He walked a little taller, laughed a little louder, and even his teachers noticed the change. It was as though the weight of years of misunderstanding had finally lifted from his small shoulders. Ethan became a quiet presence in our lives, sometimes just a call, sometimes a visit, never overwhelming, always considerate. He wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, stumbled in his words, and occasionally faltered under the weight of his own guilt. But he tried, and trying mattered more than anything. One warm Sunday afternoon, I watched Noah play outside with Ethan. They kicked a soccer ball back and forth in the yard, shouting and laughing. Noah's face was open, free, and bright with joy. Ethan moved with a natural ease, no longer stiff or cautious, just present. I stood at the porch, arms crossed, a soft smile on my face. For the first time in years, the house felt whole, not because the past was erased, but because the present was finally acknowledged, embraced, and respected. Noah paused mid-kick and ran over to me. Mom, do you think maybe he really can be part of our lives? I knelt to meet his gaze. I think so, Noah, but it will take patience and honesty from all of us. The important thing is that we're trying. He smiled and ran back to Ethan, who was waiting with open arms. They laughed, collided in a playful tackle, and for a moment, the years of pain and loss seemed to dissolve into nothing but the warmth of connection. Later, Ethan and I sat on the porch, a quiet peace settling over us. The air was filled with the scent of evening flowers and the distant laughter of our son. I don't know what the future holds, Ethan admitted, his voice soft. I can't promise perfection, but I can promise honesty, and that I'll be here, for him, for us however it can work. I studied him for a long moment, remembering the man he once was, the man who left, and the man who had returned. I saw sincerity etched into his features, tempered by the lessons of 10 years apart. That's all I need, I said finally. Honesty, presence, and effort. Everything else will follow. Ethan nodded, relief washing over his face. For the first time in a decade, we weren't at odds. We were simply together in a new way. Noah ran up, breathless, holding the soccer ball. Can we play one more game before dinner? We both smiled. Of course, I said. And as the three of us ran into the yard, chasing the ball, laughing, and stumbling over our own feet, I realized something that I had long forgotten. Life didn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. Healing didn't have to erase the past. It just had to allow us to move forward. 10 years of separation, hurt, and misunderstandings had brought us here. And finally, we were ready to embrace the future together. Flawed, fragile, but full of hope, love, and second chances.